canceled, so we're doing it again. Your aim today is students will be able to ideas. You can just watch the board, Dallin, and record it from there. Get ready to turn and talk. You have 2 to the 0 power. If you had to predict before diving into what's happening behind the scenes, what would 2 to the 0 be? You have 15 seconds to turn and talk and give your reasoning. Odd start. Go.
Well, they're all like
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Colby, face forward, please. Waylon, give me your prediction. Raise your hand if you agree that was also your prediction. It should be 0. Hands down, please. I'm going to do something today, and in these 2 different examples, they tend to cause a lot of anger and oftentimes maybe some just more glares that I've already received with my homework policy, Elliot, Sasha. And I'm going to say that 2 to the 0 is actually equal to 1.
what?
And the reaction is always the same every year because for the entire first 7 years of your math lives from kindergarten to now, anytime you've seen 0 times something, 0 divided by something, anytime you see 0, you automatically think, oh, the answer's got to be 0. This is the first time where something appears in your number. This is the first time, Wyatt and Tanner, that is your Wyatt first, Tanner second. The first time that something to the 0 has to equal 1. That doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm about to prove it to you, Vienna. Okay, I'm gonna prove it to you. So I'm gonna actually pause all hands. Hands down. You can debate me after I prove it to you, which you actually won't be able to debate because it's a pretty solid proof. If your brain is hurting after this is a lesson that it causes that reaction and then you start doing it, and the more you do it, it's actually a pretty easy process once you memorize the rule. So let's just say we have 2 to the 3rd, okay? And we're going to divide by 2 to the 3rd. We know quotient property says to subtract. So 3 minus 3 would give me 2 to the 0. Okay, so far that looks like what we started with. Now, why in the heck is 2 to the 0 actually 1? Well, let's prove it to the right. 2 to the 3rd is really 2 times 2 times 2. 2 to the 3rd again is 2 times 2 times 2. We can cross cancel a 2 with a 2 because 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 2 one time. So I'm going to cross these out. They become 1. This becomes 1. This becomes 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. If you cross cancel, you can cross cancel anything top and bottom of a fraction if it's the same, and it becomes a 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 2 once, cross cancel it. That's your basic cross canceling method you learned as a 5th grader, maybe a 4th grader. So if you multiply across, you get 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 1 over 1 is equal to 1. Sasha. This is an example. So if you had an example that was 2 to the 3rd over 2 to the 3rd. I just threw a random example. You could have done 2 to the 5th over 2 to the 5th. I just wanted to show you that when something becomes 2 to the 0, because 3 minus 3 is 0, why is it 1? This is your example for logically why that happens. Tony.
Doesn't matter what number you put in for the exponent.
As long as they're both the same top and bottom and they become 2 or something to the 0, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a problem that says something to the 0 power. Sarah.
So if like 2 to the power of the 2 to the power on a test, would the answer be 2 to the 0 or 1?
If it says exponential form, you're going to put 2 to the 0. If it says standard form, you're going to put 1. You're also about 5 minutes ahead of in the notes, which you guys are brilliant. We're going to get to a problem that says that and differentiates. These are the same thing. 2 to the 0 is 1. That is Mr. J again. Do not. I am pressing play when I shouldn't be. No, I'm not.
I see it. I can see it.
Creativity in Mr. Max's study.
Yeah.
She was rummaging in my bag because she thought I stole a pencil.
You did.
Why was it on the ground? It's like, oh yeah, that's my pencil now. Like, I saw a cool pencil and she saw an opportunity to say it was hers.
Okay, voice is off. 3, 2, 1. I have a notes video up that Mr. J and I presented to, I think 2 years ago, the 8th grade class, and this is my model of notes, so I get every detail on to you guys. 3 to the 0. I know anything to the 0 power is 1. 3 to the 0 is 1. Let's prove it just one more time. Let's say 3. Let's just say it's 3 to the 4th this time. Over 3 to the 4th. Quotient property says to subtract 4 minus 4, and you get 3 to the 0. Okay, let's prove that. 3 to the 4th is written like 3 times 3 times 3. And on the bottom, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 3 to the 4th matches like that. Cross out. 1 3 with another 3. They cross cancel and turn into 1. 3 and 3 crosses into a 1. 3 and 3 turns into a 1. 3 and 3 turns into a 1. I have just proven to you that despite the angry glares and shouts I got the first time I threw up 3 to the 0 is 1, or 2 to the 0 is 1, it actually is logical and makes sense. So here's the deal. On your tests, if you have some number that says to the 0, you don't actually have to prove it to me. You can use this really cool trick that just says anything to the power of 0 is 1. So these are actually some of the easiest problems you'll get. Maya, 9 to the 0, what's your answer? 30 to the 0, Mackenzie. X to the 0, it's a variable. That one looks funky. What do you think it is, Jackson? Some number. That's just going to be 1. So x to the 0 is 1. Any number to 0 is 1. And last one. Whoa, this one looks funny. 4 to the 0. Help me with that one, Mackenzie. So I have 4 to the 0 times 4 to the 3rd. I'm not sure where you got something on the top and bottom. Can you explain that a little more? Oh, you're proving it to me. Yeah. Okay. You're fine with proving it. Let's see. That's 4 to the 0. I'm gonna bypass that, and we're not gonna prove it. We're gonna rewrite it like that. Elliot, what's the answer? Yeah, so you know 4 to the 0 is 1. Multiply 1 times 4 to the 3rd. That's your answer. 4 to the 3rd. Okay, question. Waylon.
You said that any number to the 0 is 1?
Correct.
saying that about x. This is a lot of
Yeah, so any number to the power of 0 is 1. That's kind of algebraically is what you were shown. X to the 0, that's an algebraic statement. Any number to the 0 is 1. That's like your basic algebra statement that you'll put.
Anything to the power of 0 is 1.
Correct. That is what you need to know after you leave today. Anything to 0 is 1. Sasha to the power of 0, 1.
Number one.
Okay, next page, please. I'm going to blow your mind again. 2 to the negative third. This looks kind of weird. 2 to the negative third. I'm about to do something to this number that also you've never seen before and also doesn't really make sense. So if I have a number to the negative power, what this weird thing does is it's going to flip into a fraction. So 2 to the negative third can also be written as this. You're going to write a fraction and flip it, and the exponent becomes positive. Let me prove it to you again. We're going to make an example. So here's your example that we're going to prove it with. Wyatt and Sasha, I'm going to prove it, and then I'll take questions. Was this from before, Wyatt?
Yeah, I found my own.
Is it on task?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
So, what job, other than some like Amazon worker, will need that?
That's not quite on task, but a good question. Ask me the last 5 minutes of class, please. So your example, then it's probably not as important if you're going to forget, is this. If you have 2 to the second over 2 to the fifth. Why does 2 to the negative third equal 1 over 2 to the third? Let's figure it out. If you know quotient property says to subtract, you know that 2 minus 5 would equal 2 to the negative third. Nod if that makes sense. If it doesn't, it's okay. These things hurt your brain for a little bit, then you guys will be pros in a week. So let's prove that. Why is it 2 to the negative third? Well, if you have 2 to the second, it's 2 times 2. If you have 2 to the fifth, it's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Elliot, raise your hand, please. That's your second. You're first. I may have forgotten to write one down. You got a freebie. So if you have 2 times 2 on top and 2 written 5 times on the bottom, we can start to cross cancel some. 2 crosses with the 2. 2 crosses with the 2. What you're left with is 1 on the top and 2 to the third on the bottom. Your brain hurts, and I know it goes this way every year. Okay, question, Sasha.
If we're flipping this over and the negative 3 exponent becomes a positive, why doesn't the 2 become a negative?
Because you're dealing with exponents only, the base has to stay the same. The base is always just going to be 2. It's only the same. You do not change the base. It's a completely different problem. Tanner.
Isn't that 1 and 2 to the negative third?
No, it is 1 over 2 to the third because you flip it and the exponent turns opposite.
But okay, so why I'm confused is on the example, 2 to the second and then over 2 to the fifth, you say, and then you go down to equals 2 to the negative third, and then you said it also is equal to 1 over 2 thirds. No.
So yes, this equals this.
How?
2 minus 5 is negative 3. Do you agree? 2 minus 5 is negative 3.
Yeah.
We just proved then that if you expand this, it also equals 1 over 2 to the third. If that hurts your brain, just pause. I'm going to have hands down, and we're going to finish off a few examples. Negative in math term means opposite. Okay? So if you see an exponent that's the opposite, this is what you do. If that hurt your brain and my proof was like, I don't really get it at all. That's natural. Like you're really learning 8th grade stuff and the average 8th grader, even the advanced 8th grader is like mind blown. So when you have a negative exponent, here's what you do. Every time you see that, just flip the fraction and make the exponent positive if it's negative, and negative if it's positive. So if you have 3 to the negative 4th, this is the same thing as 3 to the negative 4th over 1. Flip the fraction and make the exponent positive. That's your answer. 2 steps. You have 1. This looks funky, you guys. Let me rewrite it. 1 over 3 to the negative 2nd. Flip your fraction and make the exponent positive. This time the exponent's on the outside, but you can rewrite it as 3 squared. Either one would be correct. Elliot. And it will for about a week until you do 5 lessons with these in them, and then you just have this rule down and you're just crushing it every time. The logic part of it will start to catch up and the confusion will wear off a bit. Let me do one more, then I'll take hands again. 2 to the 5th to the negative 3rd. Okay, flip your fraction. Make your exponent positive. Tony.
So one question. Did you skip 6 to the negative 2?
I did. Where is it? Right here. 6 to the negative 2nd. Let me get a hand. Who has the answer for this one? Elliot, what do you think it is?
1 over 6 to the power of 3.
You got it. Flip the